Hello developers, how are you all doing? In the last video we have looked at how to make a FastAPI application that will paginate our 100 user list and return only 5 users per a single page, and it's also customizable. Before watching this video, go ahead and check that out to follow along. It will be in the info card right here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a very basic React.js application that will use the FastAPI app that we have built in the previous video and show the users, display the 5 users for a single page. As you can see, we have the 5 users in the first page, and you can click through the pages. If you go to the second page, you see the second 5 users, and then third, fourth, and fifth, and so on. Let's get started, guys. Before getting started, I want to show you the breakdown of the UI elements. So in the UI, you can see that there is a title and the second component, which is this blue box. I have intentionally put it to blue so that it will be easier for you guys to look at. And this huge blue box is a separate component, which is users component, which will hold the same component, which is replicated here through a for loop. Each card is a user component with different name, picture, and email. In the same way, we have the third component here, which is our pages component, and it will contain the page components for a single page number. So all of these numbers are nothing but a page component with different page numbers. So let's get started, guys. So first, I have moved all the backend code that we have built in the previous video into a separate folder called server, and I have created a client application, which is nothing but the create react app application called client. So in that we have the source folder, and in app.js I have just removed everything that React provides by default and replaced it with the user's header. So let me just quickly run that for you. So it's already running, and this is what we have till now. Now let's build this card item first. So let's break down the UI into small pieces, and then we can build each piece. So first I want to build this user card. So I'm going to call this user. So let me just create a user.js file, and in that I'm going to export. I'm using only functional components. Export const user, which will be a functional component, and it's going to take the name, the email, and also the profile picture URL. This picture is just an image tag with a source as the picture URL, which we are returning in the API. So I'm just going to put these parameters here. So these will be the arguments for our component, and it will be returning a div. This div will hold all the things inside it. So this div is the main box that you are seeing here. It will have the image tag and the h4 tags that I have used here. So these are 2 h4 tags that I have used. So let me just Control Z, and then I'm using another div to hold the image tag. And as I have said, we will be having 2 h4s, one for the name and the other for the email. So the name is going to be the name that we get from the arguments, and the email will also be the same. I'm just putting that right there. In the image tag, the source is going to be the picture URL which we get from the input. Okay, now I'm also missing the alt thing. Let me just quickly put that here so that it will not show any errors. So if I just render that here, and let me just give temporary names for now. I'm just going to give the name as A and email as B and the picture URL as C for now. Okay, I need to put everything inside a single parent, so yeah, I think that should fix it now. Okay, so we see the name and email, but we don't see the image. That is fine because the URL is not the right one. So just let's just leave that there, and let's or else we can just use this images URL which it is using. Let me just go to the inspector, the tools, and copy the source URL and use that for now. Later we can integrate everything with our API. Okay, so as you can see, we have the image, the name, and also the email address. So let me just go to the user component and style this. So I've already styled these, and not going to explain how I styled all of these because that's pretty basics, and I'm not going to bore you. So these are the styles, just giving it a border and a border radius and setting a background color, some margin padding, and also some height constraints. And same goes for this div also. This is basically to align the image. So I'm just giving the outer div of the image a width of 70 and giving the margin as auto to center it. And also the image tag is going to have a style of width 100% so that it will use up all the width provided by the card. So that's pretty much our card component. Don't worry, it's just looking like this for now. Later it will automatically fit. Or else we can also give a max width is equal to 400 pixels so that it will not, actually I need a little less. Okay, so there we have our user card. So we will be using this user card to fill up all the user items. So each user item is just a user card. So let's build the blue box out there, so which is going to be our users component. So let me just create users.js, and in that I'm going to export const users is equal to, and this is going to take the list of users as input. So the users component will have a list of users, and it will render the user component for each user in the provided users list. So we have the users list, and it is going to return a div which will obviously have some styles, and for now I'm not showing the styles, I'll add them later. And we can iterate through the users list dot map and the map function will give us the item, which is the user. I'm just calling that item as user, and the index. I'm taking the index, and I'm going to return, actually just return it, and I'm going to return a user object. So it will be the user component, and the inputs will be name, email, and the picture. I'm just pasting that. Okay, so we have the name, the email, and the picture. These will be inside the user object. So the users is just a list of user objects, and each object will have the name, email, and the picture. Just check out the previous video so you will get more clarity on how we are getting these attributes inside the object, because that's how our response is. And now, as we already have this here, let me just import that. Import user from user. Okay, so now I have the users component ready, and let me just replace the user component which I have used here with the users component. So because that is the main idea. So the app will contain the users component, and the users component will render each user component. So let me just remove this and put the users component here, and I need to pass users list here, which we don't have yet. Let me just create it in a second. Instead of user, we need users. Okay, cool. Now that we have the template ready, obviously it's going to give an error because we don't have this list already defined. So we need to get this from the API. So to get that from the API, we need the backend URL. So I'm just copying the backend URL as a constant, which is running at 8000 port, and if you visit this, you should see the user response. Slash yes. So as I've said, it will return us a list of items. In each item we have the user object. So this is the first user object. It has a name, an email, and a picture URL. So this is how we will be having the response. So I'm going to import the use effect and use state from React, and then fetch these things, the user array, when the app mounts. Okay, so first let me have the user state. So the users will be having an empty state, so it will be an empty list when the component mounts. And then I'm going to define a function called const get users, which will fetch and I also need to pass the page numbers, right? So as a query parameters, if you see the docs, we can see that the function takes the API endpoint takes a page and also a size. So for that, let me also have two more state variables. Those are nothing but the page and the total. So the size, I am assuming that it is 5 for now. I'm not using a separate state variable for size. I'm just considering it as a constant. So to make the size common throughout all pages, so every page just has the size as 5, but you can change it if you would like to. But for now, I'm just sticking with 5. So the get users needs a page and a size as inputs. So once you have those two, I'm just going to fetch from the backend URL and give it the path /users, which we have here, /users, and then the page as query parameter. So I'm going to give it the page as 1 when the component mounts, and size will be 5 as I've made it the default size. And then I'm going to get the response, and I'm going to make it as response dot. I'm going to convert it into JSON, and dot then I'm going to get the data, and I'm going to use the data and extract. Let me just show you the response model once again. So in the items, I'm going to have the list of users, so which is what I want, right? So I need to set the users list to data.items, and then I also need to extract and set the total. So it will be set total of data.total. We also have the total here, so I'm just extracting that, and also the users array, which is items. I'm just setting them in our state variables, users, and also the total. Okay, so once we have this function ready, I'm going to call that inside the use effect. When the component mounts, just run this function whenever the component mounts. So in this, I'm going to just call the get users with our page and also our size, which we fixed to 5. So I also want it to refresh whenever I click on 2, 3, 4. So 1 is just saying that the page number is 1. So then the page is going to be updated. So whenever this state variable updates, I want this use effect to run again to fetch the new users in that particular page. So I'm just adding page as a dependency here, so that it will refetch every user when the page variable is changed. Okay, so now we have the users object ready. Users list is ready for us now, and we should be able to display the users here. So if we go ahead and look at our application, we can see that our application is already working cool. We already have the users, which is looking fine, and it is also white in color, but that is a style thing, which I will come back later in just a second at the end. So because style is not the priority for now, I'm just going to focus on the functionality first. Okay, so now we have the users component ready, and I want to build this pages component now. So for that, I first want to build the page component. So this each number is the page component. So let me first build that, creating a component called page.js, and in that I'm going to take a bunch of parameters as inputs. It's a function, not an object. Okay, and it's going to return a div again, and in that div it's just going to display the page number. So the page number is nothing but the number which we see here, 1 2 3 4 5 6 so on 20, and the set page is nothing but the set page function that we get from the use state. I'm passing that to the child component, which is the page, so that when I click on 2, it should be able to access this function and update the page variable here, so that the whole app knows about the update. So once the page is updated, use effect hook will kick in and it will run automatically. So that's why I'm passing the use set page function to the page component, and it will be calling whenever the component is clicked. So I'm going to give a quick style to the div. So this is just saying that if this page number is selected, so here 1 is selected, so when 1 is selected, it should not have any clickable style. It should be just a normal one, so that the user knows that it's not clickable. If it is not selected, like 2, 3 and the other pages, it should have these styles. So it should be in blue color and underlined, and the cursor should be pointing. So that's what this is doing, a very simple thing. And whenever a user clicks on the component, it should automatically update it. So on click, I'm going to run this function, which will call the set page and give it the page number. So the page number, if it is 5, then the set page function will be called whenever I click on 5, and then it will set the page in the app to 5. So that is what we are doing for now. I'm not going to render this for now. I'll just render it as part of the pages component. So let me also quickly build this list component, which is the pages.js, and that is going to import page first, obviously, and it's going to take in some parameters which are so it's going to take the page, the set page function, the size and the total. So the size and total are needed because we want to know how many page numbers we want to show. So without size and total, you cannot calculate how many pages will be shown, right? So only if you know the total, which is 100 users, and size as 5, you can divide and then get to a conclusion that you need to show 20 numbers. And this set page and page, these are being passed to the pages component, so that set page will be passed to the page, so that when you click, it will update the page, and the page is passed so that the page component knows which is selected. Okay, now let me write the code for this component, and it's going to return another div again and it's going to map it's going to iterate through the a list which we don't have yet. So we want a list which is starting from 1 and goes all the way towards the last page number. So the last page number is nothing but total divided by size. So to create that list, I'm just going to call that as page nums, and it is going to be a list. So I'm going to have an array which is going to be having a length of 10 for now. Let me just assume that there are 10 pages, and from that I'm going to get the keys and map those keys so that they will not return the keys, but it will return key plus 1. So if the key is n, it should return plus n. So so what this is basically doing is it's having an array, and from the keys it is creating a list by the spread operator, and then in that list I'm just mapping each element and incrementing it by 1, so that this will be an array from 0 to 9, as I have passed 10 here, and I'm just adding 1 to each element so that I will have 1 to 10 numbers. Okay, so now as I don't need a 10 here, what I'm actually interested in is the actual number of pages, so which will be total divided by size, and I want to pass it to an integer so that it will not create any errors, and then come back to here, and I'm going to iterate through the page nums and map, get the page num and also the ID, and I'm going to return the page component, as we already know the page component, which will take in the parameters it needs. Let me just quickly paste those parameters here. So it will take the page number, the set page function to update the page number, and is selected. So here is where we are going to use the page. So if the page is equal to the pages page number, then it means that this page component is selected. So that's how the page component knows that it is selected, and based on that it will have its styling. And I'm also going to quickly paste the style for this div, and yeah, this is basically displaying it as flex so that it will we can use the magic of flex, and I'm just giving it row wrap so that on resizing it will just overflow and come into the next column, next row, sorry. So, and also I'm just centering everything so that it will just stick to the center. So that's our pages component. So let me just show that here as well. If I put the pages component here, pages, and give it the arguments that it needs, okay, let me just import that also. Yeah, so as you can see, just reload that. Doesn't seem to be working. Just see the error. Doesn't seem to be working here. Let me just go and check the pages component really quick. Just having the list, and we are just okay, so we are actually not returning it, so that is the problem. So if I just save that and refresh, yes, there we go. So this is already functional, guys. So if I just click on the second page and the third page, as you can see, it is actually getting the list of users accordingly. So it's getting the first 5, the second 5, and then the third 5. It's really annoying that it is going down. So let me just fix that real quick. So I'm going to just give the users some style so that it will not span all the way down, and it will just limit its height to 85 vertical height. And then I'm just giving it some flex so that we have the nice functionality of flex, and it will row wrap everything so that if something overflows in first row, it will just push it back to the second row, and it will automatically be responsive. Okay, so yeah, there you go. And the final touch to give this the background, I just gave the index.css something. So in the index.css I just gave the height as 100 VH, so the body will have the complete height, the whole screen to itself, and also the background color. So the background color I have chosen aquamarine, yeah, so I have chosen that. So yep, there you go. So did it, guys. So this is the front end which is using our FastAPI backend pagination, which we have built in the previous video, and using that to paginate and show the results nicely as we iterate through the pages. That's all for now, guys. Please hit the like button if you love the content and feel like you've learned something today. And for more interesting videos and educative videos like this, subscribe to the channel. Junior Developer signing off. Bye bye, guys.